right? I have enormous respect for what Johnny has done, and I'm looking forward to seeing what new computing devices are on the horizon.
Mark Zuckerberg has said that almost all of Llama's code will be AI generated very soon. Satya Nadella has said it's as much as 35% for Microsoft right now. You've said 25% last year, I believe you said, that of Google's code is AI generated. You have over 180,000 employees right now. Is it half that in the future?
Look, I expect we will grow from our current engineering base even into next year, right? Because it allows us to do more, right? I think the opportunity space is also increasing. I just view this as making engineers dramatically more productive, getting a lot of the mundane aspects out of what they do, allowing them to spend on higher value-added tasks. But that means it's an accelerator. People will be able to do more, which means maybe we'll create new products, and hence we will need more people. At least in the near term, to me, it looks like we will expand engineering velocity, and that doesn't mean we're constrained in what we will do. We'll end up doing more as a company as well.
What about the long term?
Look, I mean, horizontally as a technology, it's tough to predict all effects of it long term. Just the fact that today, 60% of the jobs today didn't exist in 1940, right? At least by MIT study by an economist called David Autor, right? So it is so tough to sit at any given time. I was just looking at YouTube in India. There are 100 million channels in India alone. There are 15,000 channels with 1 million subscribers. Just imagine describing this world to someone in India 15 years ago.
Right.
It would make no sense. So, I don't want to, I think it's a bit pointless to think that far ahead. But I think we underestimate how expansionary this moment is.
So this isn't too far ahead, so I hope you'll humor me, but Anthropic CEO says AI could eliminate 50% of white-collar jobs in the next 5 years, unemployment rising to 10 to 20%. Do you agree?
Look, I think we should take those concerns super seriously, right? With this technology, to my earlier point about new jobs getting created, you're going to create new opportunities. I look at something like VO3 with video. It's clear to me you're going to allow pretty much everyone in the world to be a sophisticated creator. I can't sit and linearly, imagine what the impact of that will be, right? So you're creating all these new opportunities. You have tremendous positive externalities. We will tackle tough, vexing problems, make progress on areas like cancer, right? All that. Educate a lot more people. As part of that, there could be job displacement. I mean, those are serious concerns. So as a society, you have to think about how do you reskill people? What are new social safety nets that you would need? Those are super important conversations for society to have. But I think being too specific and saying that many jobs will be, I just don't see we have made predictions like that for the last 20 years about technology and automation. It hasn't quite played out that way.
Yep.
But I respect that, I think it's important to voice those concerns and debate them. And I think that those are important conversations to have.
In 2 trials now, judges have said that Google is a monopoly in search and partly a monopoly in ads. How do you address the concern that your AI is built on an existing domination of search and ads, and that this is just reinforcing original monopolies?
First of all, we disagree with the rulings, and we are in the process of appealing these things. Look, if anything, this moment has shown, I don't think there's anyone here who is using anything they don't want to use. You look at the success of ChatGPT or any other product, and people literally have more choice than ever before. The reason people use Google is because they want to use it, right? And so I think we continue to innovate. I think choice is good for users, competition is good for the world. So that's how I see it.
You've said the remedies proposed are too extreme. Would you ever voluntarily break yourself up, control your own destiny?
Look, I mean, they seem, compared to what the initial scope of the ruling was, some of the proposed solutions are far overreaching. We'll see how it plays out. I look at the amount of, we spent over $50 billion in R&D last year. Right? We are one of the top R&D investors in the world. We take such a lot, we didn't build things like Chrome, and we've invested a couple of decades into these. Waymo, we've been building it over a decade. We've been doing that with quantum computing for over a decade. This amount of R&D, this amount of innovation, I think makes sense to do, and we take a long-term view, so that's how I think about it.
I've heard you say a few times that you think of AI as an expansionary moment, but so far it does seem to be favoring tech giants and well-funded startups with access to GPUs and data centers and enormous amounts of capital. Isn't this really concentrating power in fewer hands, and is AI just another winner-take-all game?
Look, I think there are, I'm confident there is a company that's going to be created with AI, just like when the internet happened. Many years after the internet happened, Google didn't exist. So, there's no doubt to me that 3 years from now, there'll be a company which will be dominant in this AI age, which we don't even know the name of today.
Yep.
That's the only way things work in the future, right? So,
you have all this information about us, and you have our deepest, darkest secrets. It's already hard to trust
not me,
big tech.
you
Not me personally. Well, yeah, actually you do. Not you personally, but your company does. It's already hard to trust big tech, and now you're going to be using more of this information to integrate AI into more personalized experiences. Why should we trust you now more than ever before?
Well, we earned that trust by, we've been storing people's emails now for many, many years. But we've handled that content responsibly, right?
I hope.
We protect it from bad actors. We fight against unwarranted requests. So I think more than any other company, I think we've taken, this is a responsibility. People trust us in those moments. And we are only evolving the products in the way people are telling us, with their feedback. Look, the biggest thing people ask with Gemini and Gmail is, why can't it write more like me? Right? It's an ask which we are responding to.
Google's rolling out Gemini to kids. I've got enough on my plate parenting with more screen time and social media. Are our kids' best friends going to be chatbots?
Look, there's always going to be a sense of discomfort with new technology. I don't know, like when online dating first came, people would ask questions like, are you really going to meet someone online? Right? So people adapt to these things. Will people comfortably, naturally interact with AI in their lives in the future? Yes. We are seeing it empirically in terms of how people are using them. I see people coming to Gemini asking questions like, at an aggregate, we see questions like how should I prepare for this interview? They're talking as if it's a companion. So we do see evidence of that.
But what about kids? Like Gemini for kids?
With kids, just like today when we design YouTube for kids, we design it with a different set of guardrails. And so for kids, I think you would scope it down to those appropriate experiences, obviously.
You just unveiled VO3, which you were talking. It is mind-blowing seeing these super, super lifelike videos, but it is also really scary. Is this the end of truth as we know it?
I think this is part of the role when you asked. I think this is part of the value proposition. This is why people will come to places like Google, because they're trying to ascertain what's reality, right, and versus not. And I do think we are going to evolve new norms around, for example, with VO, we are watermarking videos. They are built with SynthID, so people can detect that they were generated with VO. You can upload any video to Google and ask about this, any image to Google, ask about this image, and it will tell you if it was generated by VO3. We built a synth ID detector for researchers and journalists. So, all these things are going to evolve in parallel. Down the line, we will need regulations, maybe, to say something which is a true deep fakes. Just like your financial fraud, you would need new norms around things like that. So we have to evolve as new technology comes along.
I just wonder, are we going to have a shared sense of reality again? It's just, this is made with AI. It's insane.
I think so. I think humans, as humanity, we would value that shared sense of reality, and so you would value human experiences even more in the future, right? That's how I think about it.
YouTube is arguably the most influential media platform in the world now. I mean, it is a political force, it's a cultural force. Our kids are learning there. All kids think they want to be creators. 75% of teenagers, I believe, say they're watching it every single day. I'm a mom, you're a dad. I know you're in charge of the thing, but does it ever terrify you to have that much power?
Look, I think that sense of power is an illusion. I think when you're working in the tech industry, you've simultaneously started with the conversation with are you about to go extinct? And then you're ending the conversation with, aren't you the most powerful thing in
Fair enough.
So you got to choose in this continuum. Only one of that can be the truth. Yeah.
Fair enough. I'm curious about your approach to the Trump administration. You were front and center at the inauguration. Google has rolled back some of its DEI policies. Did you compromise on something that you believe in?
Look, first of all, we are one of the leading American companies, global companies. In this particular moment, with the point of inflection around AI, I do think the next few years are critical from many aspects. So we are committed to engaging. We did that with the first Trump administration. We are committed to doing that. Look, around the world, we comply with laws and regulations in all the countries we operate in. Doesn't mean we agree with every aspect of everything, right? But as a company, we do have our set of values, and so we are committed to them as well. So I think, for example, as a company, I think we are committed to making sure we develop AI in a way that protects the planet. That's an important value for us, and you've seen us prioritize efforts around renewable energy. So we'll continue doing those things, but I think it's important that as a company we engage. There are many people in the administration, particularly around critical energy needs, critical infrastructure. These are all important areas we want to work together on.
When you were on the circuit last year, we spoke about the criticisms, that Google and you personally have been too late to the AI game, too late to get AI to market, and I wonder, how has your own leadership style evolved over the last couple of years specifically? Have you changed at all to meet this moment of radical disruption?
Look, I feel like this is the main thing I did as a CEO setting up the company is to really be at the forefront of AI. When I look at the depth and breadth of what we are doing as a company, across everything we are doing on multiple fronts, I think we are incredibly well positioned. But definitely, through this moment, it's a moment in which we realize it's a moment to accelerate at scale what we are doing, and that involves, stepping back and thinking about how you can make the company work faster, setting up Google DeepMind, bringing our best teams into one team, scaling up our AI infrastructure. Our capex is $75 billion. That was $20 billion a few years ago. So we are dramatically scaling up our infrastructure. So you're undertaking these big bets. Waymo, people are talking about it now, but 3 years ago, people were very pessimistic on it. I increased our investment in Waymo at that time. So look, so you are making decisions not based on what people are currently saying at any given moment, but with a long-term view in mind.
Are you still getting involved in nitty-gritty product decisions, or is that leaving that to Sergey?
Look, I'm fortunate to have Sergey. He's deeply working on the Gemini models, but I'm very, very involved in various aspects of our product decisions. I think you have to do that in the tech space.
You've been CEO for 10 years now. However many years out it is, what kind of person do you think Google's future CEO should be?
Look, I think it's important to understand, like the products we build, tremendously impact society, and the journey of technology is doing the hard work to make sure you're harnessing it in a way that it benefits people, and that takes a lot of work, and I think that'll be an important quality to have.
You're driving this massive technological change that's also bound to create like major societal disruption. How do you personally wrestle with that? Like, is there some philosopher or religion or deeper code that you turn to help you answer some of these questions?
Okay. First of all, there are many of us doing this. I think ultimately it comes down to, you don't need much more than having empathy for your fellow people on this journey. And I think I'm doing what I'm doing, and so are many others in the industry, because you get a chance to positively impact people with the work you do, and that's the true North Star at the end of the day.
What should kids be studying these days? Like, should they still be learning how to code? Should we still be getting computer science degrees? Like, I've got 4 of them, so I really need some advice.
They're probably going to be talking to AI asking this question, so my answer doesn't matter, maybe. Look, I think one of the things that's great about this moment is, I think AI over time will allow us all to pursue our passions more, right? And I think that's the truly liberating aspect of a lot of this. You're giving pretty much everyone a powerful tool to express themselves in the way they want to. And so I wouldn't change anything of what you're studying. I think I would still encourage people to follow their passions and find something that's of interest to them. I think pretty much all disciplines which are valuable today, there'll be a version of that valuable in the future.
What are the limits of AI? Like, is it possible we don't reach AGI?
It's entirely possible. I mean, like, we could be dealing with, look, everything we can see. I feel very positive there's a lot of forward progress ahead with the paths we are on. Not only the set of ideas we are working on today, some of the newer ideas we are experimenting with. So I'm very optimistic on seeing a lot of progress. But you've always had these technology curves where you may hit a temporary plateau. So are we currently on an absolute path to AGI? I don't think anyone can say for sure. The pace of progress is staggering. And looking ahead, I sense you will have that pace of progress. But there could be limitations in the technology. The technology currently feels like you're seeing dramatic progress, but then there are areas where this thing can't do this obvious thing, right? Like Waymo's doing very, very well, but remember, you can teach a kid to drive in about 20 hours, right? And so both the technology is amazing, but we are quite far from a generalized technology as well.
We talked a little bit about your vibe coding backstage. Would you like to share how often are you vibe coding, and what are you working on?
I wish I could do more, but I just been messing around, be it either with Cursor or I vibe coded with Replit, trying to build a custom web page with all the sources of information I wanted in one place, so I could type a location and get it all. Partially complete, so but it's exciting to see how casually you can do it now, right? And compared to the early days of coding, things have come a long way. It feels so delightful to be a coder in this moment in time.
Even after that, you still need all those software engineers, are you sure?
Look, I think so, yes.
Last question. We've got a new episode of The Circuit out this week, actually, about Microsoft's 50th anniversary. Google's 27 years old. What is Google at 50?
What's Google at 50? Look, I hope we are nimble and innovating, and in the technology industry, you have to earn your success every year. And so for me, it's more about building a culture that's really innovative at its core, takes a long-term view, and does deep technology work and translates that into products that impact billions of people.
All right.
So,
is a human going to be running Google or an AI?
Well, I do think whoever is running it will have an extraordinary AI companion to help. Yeah.
All right, Sundar Pichai, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
And good morning and welcome to the China Show. We're just hearing from the Alphabet CEO Sundar Pichai at the Bloomberg Tech Summit, speaking to our very own Emily Chang there on the ground. Lots of talk about AI, regulations, and the like here. Really, he talked about who could be leading Alphabet one day. Made me think about your humanoid robots package, too, from yesterday's call in some ways.
Exactly. I mean, at least he was saying at the end there, it doesn't matter who is leading it in the future, they're going to definitely be having an AI companion with them. An
assistant there.
Yeah. But really very far-ranging conversation, because I think it went all the way from the risk that the Google's facing extinction because you've got AI that cannibalizes its search business, all the way down to what's going to constitute a deep fake, these questions around the lawsuit that's ongoing, and concerns as well that maybe Sundar Pichai has just too much control over YouTube. I think Emily Chang was referencing her kids, but kids out there that are really continually turning to YouTube, and how does he feel as a father? So yeah, really covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, and certainly that's the one thing. And in terms of the regulations side, he says, the antitrust resolutions are far overreaching what's been proposed so far. So that's their take on how these regulations are going to go. But in the meantime, let's bring it back to markets here, because we're still focusing on those comments that we got from Trump late in the night, I guess you could say, in D.C.
Late night, early morning, however you want to cut it. I think it was around
afternoon
2 a.m.
for us. Yeah.
Exactly. So we started to really pass over those yesterday. But I think if you really take anything away from it, it's that impasse between the US and China is deepening, and they just don't know really how to come to the table together to try and work out an accord. And so you've certainly seen him sort of firing off all sorts of directives. Even this morning, we were just talking there about how he's instituted a travel ban, for instance, on a range of different countries, and sort of harking back to Trump 1.0. Today in the market session, though, it's also really referencing what we saw on Wall Street overnight. And this is more of a Fed story, and these expectations we're going to see further easing.
Well, we saw that data out of the U.S., right? Whether it was the ADP report, also when it comes to that ISM number, which was a big disappointment there, where you're actually seeing services slip into contraction the first time in a year or so. So that certainly led to, Treasuries caught a bid. You saw the dollar softening as well. And now more bets that the Fed might have to cut. And now I think a little bit more price cuts into September, but 2 definitely by the end of this year.
Yeah, and I think just last thing to note on this board is if you track sort of one market move or one aspect of the market today in Asia, it's also going to be that laser focus on the Japanese debt auction that we've got coming up later today, because we have seen weak demand for it, concerns around fiscal deficit, the health of that. But let's also take a look at the Golden Dragon Index, how that fared overnight, because, again, it's really that question of the relationship between US and China and when exactly we're going to see them coming to negotiate together. But Golden Dragon Index had a pretty solid session, really 2% up overnight. But also take a look at what's happening in pre-market in Hong Kong, because we're looking to sort of catch that tune a little bit, pointing to some modest gains here.
Yeah, I'm looking at the pre-market right now. Hang Seng Tech is actually opening about 1% higher here today. Hang Seng also is higher. So looks like things are looking pretty good so far here in the Hong Kong session. Certainly that dollar weakness and what we're hearing from the Fed, that maybe they're going to have to cut rates sooner than later, that certainly is lifting boats here this morning as well. In terms of the agenda, we talked about that stock rally in China, offshore renminbi also as well, as we hit that 717 level here this morning. We are expecting some Caixin PMI services numbers as well. EVs, in terms of the focus there, we're watching very closely. We got that Tesla China shipments number, fell for 8 straight months. So certainly that's one thing to watch here as well. And also there's this XPeng Huawei partnership to look out for as well.
Yeah, certainly a lot on the agenda. But let's also just take a look at this tweet that we got from President Trump. And he's saying, well, what he said overnight, essentially, but President Xi, he's saying someone he's always liked, but he's also very tough and very hard to make a deal with. So let's get more on these details now with Avril Hong joining us this morning. So, Avril, I mean, what does this tell us about the chance of de-escalation from here?
Yeah, I think it tells us that these odds of de-escalation are dwindling, that they can't get a phone call. And of course, this is after U.S. officials this week pretty much talked up the chance that we see one between the Chinese and the U.S. presidents. And, you were just discussing earlier about how this was a really late night post by the U.S. president, adding to the sense that, maybe this is keeping him up at night. And this really public voicing of the frustration with the Chinese side, it feels like his pleas are just going unanswered. And you think about as well, when it comes to the Chinese side, I think they're letting Trump know that the call would come at a price. It's not entirely clear at this point what China wants to see before a call can be secured, but we know how they've been asking for access to high-end chips and along with more Chinese investment opportunities into the U.S.
She seems reluctant to jump on this call, it seems, Avril. But it looks like Beijing is extending goodwill gestures to other economies, though. What's happening there?
Yeah, I mean, maybe the cold shoulder is still between the U.S. and China, but it's been extending this olive branch, right, to Japan. We've seen in the past week how they're pretty much lifting this blanket ban on seafood imports from Japan, which went in place about 2 years ago. And then closer ties expected between the South Korea and the U.S. or the Chinese side because of this new president coming into power in South Korea. And even with the EU leaders, we saw the Chinese Commerce Minister, Wang Wentao, on the sidelines of a WTO meeting, speaking to some of these top EU trade officials. So really adding to the sense of warming ties with everyone else but the U.S.
All right, Avril, thank you. Avril Hong there, joining us on the latest on all things trade. Your pre-market is up in Hong Kong here right now. We talked about that. It's a great taking stock, right, about the pile of household savings out there, and that could be the next catalyst here when it comes to this Hong Kong stock rally. We got the open coming up next. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back. You're watching the China Show. We're counting down the open of markets, and it seems like things are risk on here this morning. You take a look at how futures are pointing to, and Hang Seng is already up about 0.75% in the pre-market. It is what we saw in the U.S., right? When we have softer data that's amplifying those bets for more rate cuts, that certainly is lifting a lot of risk assets here today. The dollar also is softening. That's how you're seeing a stronger renminbi here at 717 levels as well. But yes, the stocks, the global stocks reached a record overnight, so stocks are still doing pretty well. That JGB sale, though, I think in the 30-year, that's going to be quite telling for the bond market today. Yeah, it's going to really give investors that sense of the concerns that you see around the health of the fiscal deficit, and that's certainly something we've seen also directed to the Treasury market as well. But taking a look here, what you've got for the market session today, opening mainland here, you can see coming online just a little bit in the green, but as you said, it was a pretty solid session on the Golden Dragon Index. Yeah, we saw some pretty outsized moves there in terms of the tech space, so certainly that is helping at least how Hong Kong tech is looking here today. So you're not quite seeing a whole lot of, I guess, conviction, but the CSI 300 is up about 0.1%, pretty flat in Shanghai and Shenzhen this morning. We do have some Taixi numbers to deal with in the next few minutes or so, but then again, not much really direction. But yeah, iron ore is recovering still. Steel's doing okay. Copper is flat this morning. And yeah, CATL, we're seeing a slight pressure on the stock. But yeah, crude, that's down some 1%. Keep in mind, we did see oil drop as well with Brent and WTI on news that the Saudis perhaps want to continue extending those supply output hikes, maybe possibly till September. So that did lead to oil prices heading lower. Take a look when it comes to the Hong Kong Open as well. We talked about how, there's a lot of talk about the EV sector here today. Yeah, we have also some changes in Pop Mart and the like to tell you about in just a bit. But yes, we are seeing Hang Seng Property do quite well. We'll see how New World is doing because that certainly has led to a lot of volatility the last few sessions as well. Tencent, Baidu, Meituan, all catching a big bid here this morning. We're seeing Meituan shares up 1.5% as well. So HS Tech seems to be leading this rally. You take a look at how Tesla shipments, though, in China did extend that slump, right? So this is really bucking what we're seeing, which is actually pretty good numbers from some of the local car manufacturers as well. But in terms of the Tesla suppliers, they're not doing too bad this morning. We're also watching airlines, right, on the back of what we heard from China, weighing these orders of hundreds of Airbus jets in this major deal and really focusing back on tariff and trade.
Yeah, and really how much that's sort of catching investors' attention. And we can get more on that now, bringing Christina Woon. She's portfolio manager at Eastpring Investments, joining us this morning from Singapore. So, Christina, even though you've got President Trump, who's on Twitter again, or X, in the middle of the night, talking about how he can't reach any sort of agreement with Xi and how he's such a tough negotiator, investors sort of seem to be shrugging it off a little bit, at least. So do you think that the concerns around this rift and the risk that we don't see any sort of resolution anytime soon, is that sort of fading a little bit into the background?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think from our perspective, our stance is that we do think that even with some good news that comes through, or people expecting perhaps a phone call at the end of the week, we do think that uncertainty will prevail, or uncertainty will remain high at the moment. But having said that as well, what we've observed is perhaps the swings in the market on the back of the slew of news flow has become perhaps a bit less violent since Liberation Day. And I would attribute this to perhaps two things. The first being a bit of Trump fatigue, if you will, and the second being the fact that, we're just through the earnings season, or a good part of the earnings season. And that's given investors a bit of fundamentals to hang their hats on, and that's always helpful in uncertain times.
Yeah, Trump fatigue, I like that. What do the fundamentals tell you then in terms of this earnings season?
Sure. I suppose it's also a function of the expectations that went into this. People were concerned that with all the news flow around tariffs, you might see downgrades to guidance. And fair enough, we did see a bit of that. But on a whole, it's been a bit better than expected. When we look at the outlook for the rest of the year, most companies are talking about different levers that they can pull to manage margins or pressures from tariffs or cost pass-throughs. That's always encouraging when you hear it from an investor's perspective, because it shows that if you pick the right companies, there are those that can manage the coming pressure if tariffs were to come through at whatever level.
Which sectors or types of companies rather are standing out to you?
Sure. It's actually quite interesting because, the tech sector has been front of mind for everyone. They're in the headlines everywhere. But despite all of these headlines, what we've actually seen in the commentary out of the tech companies so far is actually better than expected. Some of the bigger tech companies in Taiwan, for example, have maintained their growth guidances. They have mentioned that client behavior hasn't actually changed so far. So that's been encouraging from that standpoint. But I think looking forward, we do have to also bear in mind that as costs are being passed through, end prices might go up, and if smartphones get more expensive, for example, consumers consume less. That could have knock-on effects on the entire supply chain. So it's worth bearing in mind as well, the different variables you see.
And Christina, I was reading your notes and you mentioned that Asia is the place to be in the face of this U.S. or doubts of U.S. exceptionalism, and yet you also mentioned that there is a defensive play here, that you're still focusing on income. Can you square those two sort of dynamics? Sure.
So the reason why Asia has been actually quite an exciting time for us at the moment is because of how diverse it is. You can play within the stable names that are perhaps more resilient in these times, and you can also get access to growth names. You spoke about the EV sector in China earlier. That's had quite a strong run this year, and even though there have been concerns about price competition, the recent numbers have actually held up quite well. And then on the other hand, the income stocks that have been quite resilient, that's actually been a part of our playbook that has turned out quite well in the recent months, especially with the volatility. These are names where, with investors flying towards a bit more visibility, this is something that has held up well. But again, having said that, when certain stocks have outperformed the market, or if a certain sector or theme has been in favor, you always have to bear in mind that you have to marry fundamentals against that as well, because if you see misses in expectations, even if a stock is in favor, you could still see big corrections, as we've seen over the recent earnings season as well. So it's important to be quite selective at this time.
What are your views on Korea as well? Because we just had the election, of course, this week. We've seen equities there rising, I think, for a third straight session today. But it seems like investors are a little bit optimistic, really, after the new president's taken office. So do you share that level of optimism?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And, it's exciting times to be having elections. And I suspect investors will be, or investors are excited because it's been a bit more of a growth slant. Value up as a theme is coming back in focus. Can you unlock some value in some of the heavily discounted conglomerates there? There's also been talk of support for the AI supply chain as well as domestic consumption. So that's what's been lifting sentiment since yesterday. But again, we do have to bear in mind that Korea is still an export-driven market, and tariffs haven't really gone away. So I think it would be important not to get too ahead of ourselves and to continue to see how things play out.
All right, Christina, we're going to leave it there, but thank you, Christina Woon there, Eastpring Investments Portfolio Manager, joining us live from Singapore. We're going to bring it back to those live pictures out of San Francisco at the Bloomberg Tech Summit. And the Meta CTO, Andrew Bozworth, is speaking there. Let's take a listen.
Most companies fail because they didn't execute their own plan correctly. And so what I try to do with the team is really focus us not so much on the competitive landscape as on are we executing to our standards? And so we have a set of ambitious plans for the year. Right now we're on track, but admittedly a lot of these plans are kind of back-weighted, especially some of these research programs are yielding now. So what we'll know by the end of the year is whether we executed on our plan or not. What we'll know in 5 years' time is whether that was enough.
Right, we'll come back to some of your specific plans in just a second. I want to talk a little bit about the announcement that came down just last week with Anduril. You're going to jointly develop extended reality for the military. Last year, you said Meta would let U.S. government and contractors working on NatSec use your AI models for military purposes. Obviously, there's a shift at hand. What's driving? Is it political? Is it economic?
Well, no. So for quite a few of us, it's personal. I mean, so in my case, I have family members in the armed services. I want them to have the best equipment available, and I've always been a very patriotic American and believe in the importance of our role, not just inside the nation, but globally. So there's a much stronger patriotic underpinning than I think people give Silicon Valley credit for. But taking a step deeper, this is actually a return to grace for the Valley, potentially, not just from Meta, but from Google and other companies. The Valley was founded on a three-way investment between the military, academics, and private industry. That was the founding of it. There would be no technology if we weren't all tasked with the problem of computing naval ballistic trajectories during the first two world wars. Like, that is the heart and soul of the investment that led to what we are today. And that really got severed for a while there. And some of that's because of the procurement laws that changed in the 60s and 70s. Some of that's the Last Supper that happened in 1985. We ended up just kind of going our separate ways. And I think we're worse off for it. I think we're spending more money for worse technology in the public sector. And I think the private sector is not attacking some of the most valuable challenges for us to solve. And I think it's a mismatch. So I'm pretty excited about the opportunity to bring these two things together. And it makes a ton of sense. If you think about the amount of private investment that Meta has put into developing novel technologies, things like silicon carbide for our Orion AR glasses, these have obviously positive applications for the military. And not just the military, but also for more broadly inside of government. There's a bunch of research that would benefit from this. And we would benefit from them being partners of ours. So you really can work together on these pieces. I'm pretty excited about that. I think there was a period for, let's say, the last decade where there was a silent majority of people who wanted to pursue this technology for public benefit and really felt like they couldn't do that for whatever reason. And I think the tide has turned enough where that majority is actually much more comfortable being vocal about their belief that this is good for not just us as a business, but for us as contributing to the whole of mankind.
How much bigger do you anticipate military will become as a segment for you?
It's way too early to say that. So far, it's like a 0. So, let's start with 1 and go from there.
All right, we're going to leave that there, but it has been the Meta CTO, Andrew Bozworth, speaking at the Bloomberg Technology Summit with our executive editor, for technology, Tom Giles. But if you do want to continue watching that conversation, you can also go to LiveGo. You'll also find all of the big diary entries that are coming up today and later this week, as well as some of the events that you may have missed earlier. But as I said, the Meta CTO there, Andrew Bozworth, speaking at our Bloomberg Technology Summit that's ongoing over in San Francisco. But let's bring it back closer to home and talk about the Chinese social media giant Xiaohongshu, because it's seen its valuation surge to $26 billion in recent market transactions. The platform, that is known in English as Red Note, has gained traction among investors. That's as Beijing unwinds a crackdown on its tech sector. Lulu Chen, who leads our Asia investing coverage, joins us for more. So Lulu, I think back in around March, the valuation was $20 billion. So going from 20 to 26 in a couple of months, it seems like a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it's a pretty fast ascent for Xiaohongshu, and with the valuation hitting 26 billion, you can see how the company is making headway against TikTok and also gaining more traction domestically. The valuation came to light because of a fund transaction holding the shares. So the fund behind it, GSR Ventures, they're backed by some of the biggest investors in the world, including endowments from UPenn and also Carnegie Mellon, Stepstone, and also Schroders. Now, this fund has also seen its valuation getting bolstered as well. The company itself, Xiaohongshu, they're now becoming a go-to platform for everything on travel advice and also lifestyle tips.
I go to it. Every time I go anywhere, I look at,
oh, really?
Where's the best restaurants? Where can I take my kid to a playroom?
Yeah, but you know what? Because you see the queues of people that you know have been on Red Note.
Yes. But I love it. Yes, so certainly that's a really good perk. What does it tell us about the sentiment around Chinese tech lately? It seems like things are pretty positive.
It seems like it's getting a second wind, and there's rekindled interest, especially from U.S. investors, including we reported recently that Thrive Capital, Joshua Kushner's Thrive Capital, and also Capital Group, they visited China to study the AI scene. Now Thrive has said that it does not invest in China and doesn't plan to, but we're also seeing other funds, a lot of endowments also visiting China and studying the AI scene. That also is pretty much in line around the same time when Benchmark invested in Manus. So I think given how China recently vowed to support the tech sector, Xi Jinping saying that they would unwind the crackdowns and DeepSeek, those elements coming together is like giving us a boost to the sentiment.
All right. Lulu, thank you, Lulu Chen there. Joining us from Bloomberg on this whole Xiaohongshu story, and certainly a lot of talk about that valuation and what this means for maybe one day an IPO.
Yeah, that's right. It's certainly going to be a big one if it does come, and hopefully, of course, to Hong Kong. But that was Lulu Chen, and we'll have plenty more ahead. This is Bloomberg. Right, just some data crossing the terminal in the last couple of minutes. We've had the private survey for PMI figures from China just dropping. So the services one has actually come in a little bit better than expected at 51.1. The survey had been for a flat 51, and a better number actually from the month prior, 50.7. But when you take a look in aggregate, because the composite reading is still in contraction under that 50 level at 49.6, and it really just does point to that weaker manufacturing number we got earlier this week as well.
Yeah, that was sort of the one that was a sore point, I guess, and service is still at least staying, relatively speaking, a little bit more resilient in the face of all these sort of headwinds like trade tariffs and the like. So certainly that's one to watch here. We're still watching that interview with the Meta CTO, Andrew Bozworth. He's speaking at the Bloomberg Tech Summit with our very own Tom Giles. Let's listen in a bit more.
Stories were a substantially similar product. You know, they had audio, it wasn't quite as good. They had a camera, it was a little lower resolution, and it just didn't sell that well, and none of us even liked it that much yet. It was kind of cool, but was it kind of gimmicky? And we took another rev at it, and we figured, look, we're going to do this one more rev. It probably won't do much, and then we'll put the category to bed, and we'll focus on the display glasses, the ones that have displays in them. And the team just did an unbelievable job. And you look at it, and it looks almost the same. It's just a little thinner, and it's got a little bit better sound, and it's got a little bit better camera. But everything about it is better, and it's night and day. It's a product that you love. So it really is a testament to the team, not to me, not to Mark, but to the team that built this, Lee Chen Miller, among others, who just had put all the polish in all the places, and then the entire package came together. There wasn't one change they made that unlocked the value. And yeah, then as soon as we launched it, it was just an immediate hit. And we had to start scrambling to build more. And now there's we have generations planned going from here forward.
Great, looking forward to that, and looking forward to us breaking news on some of those. What do you think of Apple's Vision Pro, and do you need to move up? Do you need a higher end? Vision of Quest?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily start with like a market and work back. I will start with like, who are we not serving? What consumers are currently not well served? Apple Vision Pro, you've all probably tried it. Stunningly beautiful displays, really a sight to behold. They did some incredible work doing the eye tracking through the lens, which is why you need insert optics. You can't bring your own glasses because otherwise it wouldn't work, to get really accurate eye tracking. So, from an engineering standpoint, it's wonderful, and congratulations to that team. From a product standpoint, you can tell it's their first offering in the space. Listen, I just told you about how our Ray-Ban stories didn't do well, so I'm not trying to take anyone out behind the woodshed here. First generation products are hard. It's not until the second or third generation that you really figure out and hone the thing. And they made a lot of mistakes in that in terms of weight and where the weight was. This glass piece way out off the nose, that's a long lever arm, and that lever arm is physics. That's not a good thing when you're putting pressure on the face. So they made some mistakes that as soon as I saw it, I was like, it's a rookie mistake. It's like they'll bounce back from that, but they're gonna regret that one. So I think it was a beautiful device. I think they executed really well on a lot of the pieces of it. I think it failed like what the market wanted for reasons that were predictable if you were in the space beforehand. I'm sure they'll bounce back with something spectacular. I don't know that we need to have a more expensive or a higher end device. I think the question is, what room is there? There's a bunch of things that become possible when you have that high res display. Looking at small text, if you want to be a productivity user, you want to have really crisp, clear text at a small pixel pitch. And it's much tougher than conventional displays. Conventional displays, when you turn your head, they stay aligned to the pixel grid. Whereas when you have a VR display and you turn your head, you're now misaligned. So all your true type stuff, it's worthless. You have to do a completely new font layer. And that people forget how hard that technology was to develop for Microsoft in the late 90s and Adobe before that. Tremendously tough technology problems. And so there's a set of jobs that you want to unlock that you need to have certain resolution displays, and those just cost a certain amount of money. So I think it's always driven from what are the use cases you want to unlock and work backwards from there.
Is that something that you are actively considering at this moment?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, and we have been before. We've played with high resolution.
All right, you're watching a conversation there of that's Andrew Bozworth, the CTO of Meta, speaking with our executive editor for technology, Tom Giles, at our Bloomberg Technology Summit over in San Francisco, ongoing. And we are going to leave it here, but if you do want to continue watching this discussion, just go to LiveGo. You can find the big diary entries that are coming up today, later this week, and some of the events as well that you might have missed earlier. So we'll have plenty more ahead. This is Bloomberg.
All right, checking movers here this morning, watching Dongfeng Motor saying that it was informed by its controlling shareholder that DDFM, I should say, not involved in its restructuring here today. So the stock is lower here quite a bit. So they're not part in any restructuring of these relevant assets or business operations at the moment. There you go. We're seeing that plunge of more than 12% right now. We'll take a look at what happens with Pop Mart as well. We've got to talk about Labubus in this show. Any opportunity for me?
This week, the Pop Mart is the story that keeps on giving, and it gives again today.
It's the only one that can withstand a trade war, it seems. There you go. $249 for the stock here right now. That stock plus SF Holdings is going to be joining that FTSE China 50 index starting in just a few weeks or so. So maybe more reasons to get your access to that stock as well. In terms of the benchmarks, what we're doing in terms of markets, we talked about how things are looking pretty good, at least in Hong Kong. We're at some session highs up about 1% now, flat on the CSI 300. But it is HS Tech that is catching that massive bid here this morning. We're up 1.5% there as well. And we are seeing a little bit more weakness, I guess, in the currency now, and maybe more dollar strength coming back in the Asia session. Crude is still heading lower here, and iron ore catching a slight bid. So yeah, not a whole lot to tell you really about. It's really maybe about what the whole Fed and what expectations are looking like there now from the central bank. But a big interview coming up. We'll be speaking with the former Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull later on. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to the China Show. Here's a look at the HSI just a half hour into the session. We continue to see them punching some gains here, although we're off some of the initial highs, but we're still seeing gains of about 0.8%. Onshore markets aren't doing a whole lot here. Perhaps we're still dealing with some of the trade headlines, whether it was with whether President Xi actually wants to get on a call with Trump, and of course the U.S. president lamenting about the no urgency to do so at the moment.
Yeah, it kind of seems like he doesn't want to pick up the phone, actually, based on Trump's tweets overnight. But let's also take a look at how we're going broadly in the session today, because it was actually a pretty good day overnight on Wall Street, and we had some pretty solid gains, but it's giving up, and maybe there's an element of caution in this session because we do have a key Japanese bond auction coming up, so investors could be a little bit nervous about that, but also maybe, as you say, just still kind of thinking around what's the outlook for relations between Beijing and Washington, because we're seeing trading volumes, for instance, that are looking pretty thin. The standout, though, so far is the Kospi, because it's up 2% right now, and we had the election, of course, earlier this week, and we're rising for a third straight session. So maybe just that prospect for a bit more stability in the Japanese political situation.
Korean, you mean?
Sorry. Yeah, okay. Anyway, my mind is on the Japanese bond auction, clearly.
Yeah, no, they've entered a bull market in the Kospi, so certainly it seems like there's still those tailwinds are still there after the South Korean election, and the bonds continue to sink, so that's certainly one thing to watch. But yes, the JGB sale, the 20 was bad, the 40 was bad, the 10 was good in terms of these bond auctions, right? We'll see what the 30-year brings in just a few hours or so. But yeah, your all-country index, though, did reach that record high. So stocks are still having a party in some ways, if you take a look at that, despite all that angst that we're seeing with some of these trade headlines as well. Let's get to more on the trade stuff and maybe the latest on the Trump administration, where the president has announced a travel ban affecting a dozen countries around the world. Now, here he is speaking in the White House.
Very simply, we cannot have open migration from any country where we cannot safely and reliably vet and screen those who seek to enter the United States. That is why today I am signing a new executive order placing travel restrictions on countries including Yemen, Somalia, Haiti, Libya, and numerous others.
Let's get more with our Bloomberg editor, John Harney, joining us from Washington. John, we've seen travel bans before from Trump, but this sort of seemed to come a little bit out of the blue and catch a lot of people by surprise. So why now exactly?
A day and night here in Washington, this quickly captured a lot of attention and evoked memories, as you point out. This is it's harks back to the first travel ban, which caused a lot of chaos at the very beginning of his first administration in 2017. What this does, though, is broadens it. It includes, I believe, all the countries around the original ban, and expands them to countries like Chad, like Afghanistan, like the Republic of Congo. The rationale here is the attack in Boulder, Colorado last weekend on marchers who were trying to show support for the hostages in Gaza held by Hamas. The man who was suspected of carrying out this attack, according to the authorities, was Egyptian, and his visa ran out last year. Trump said that this showed that there were too many dangerous people in the country. Of course, Egypt itself was not on this list, but it's all part of his his continuing his continued emphasis on immigration, on the border, which was a centerpiece of his presidential campaign in 2020 and 2016, but especially in 2024.
And John, another big story we're tracking here in the China Show is of course those posts from the president about his sort of frustration around China and why President Xi won't jump on a call with him. Where does it tell us where trade negotiations are going? And really, why do you think Beijing is kind of holding their cards close right now?
Well, he came into office assuring voters that he could make deals with people like President Xi, President Putin of Russia, and others. That's been far more difficult than he seemed to think during the campaign and before he again took office. Certainly, China is in no rush to make accommodations here. There's been the rare earth minerals has been a factor, and that's may harm the supply. May affect the supply chains for American companies. And the tariffs, of course, have gone back and forth. There was this now famous term called taco. Trump always chickens out, which, of course, infuriates the president, and he insisted that isn't true. But a lot of leaders of these larger countries, not small ones, Russia, China, they seem to be hedging their bets here and thinking, well, maybe he won't do what he'll say, and maybe we can wait until he comes to us.
All right, John, thank you. John Harney there, our Bloomberg editor, joining us there late in D.C. Thank you so much for staying up with us. The next thing to watch, of course, is going to be in Japan with that 30-year bond auction set to happen in the next an hour and a half or so. So certainly we're going to watch what the demand picture is going to look like. What's the bid to cover for this one? Last week, the 10-year actually was pretty robust in terms of demand. It was the 20 and it was the 40, where we saw that sell-off, that rout in JGB's take way. Right now, you're seeing the 20-year actually down some 5 basis points. So there is, I guess, some calm leading up to this bond auction. Let's bring in Kheng Siang, APAC head of fixed income at State Street Global Advisors, to walk us through what are you expecting out of this bond auction today?
Well, I would think that the JGB markets potentially will likely be better supported this time around. The weaker auction results in the past is due to some technical factors whereby the insurance companies, they have been building up long duration positions ahead of the regulations that's coming in. And so right now their demand has tapered off. And so as a result, the auction's outcome didn't turn out to be as well. So I think that kind of surprised the market. So the BOJ is fully aware. I think once you're more fully aware, I think the situation likely will be better managed. The markets are focusing on auctions because a lot of uncertainty surrounding growth factors, tariffs, and so on. And they are focusing on fiscal. Hence, there's a lot of market attention on supply, including in the U.S. as well recently.
That's a lot of nuance, though, that maybe not every investor appreciates. So if we do see a result today that's weak, do you see that there's going to be some market gyrations off it? If people aren't appreciating, maybe it could just be a technical development.
Well, there always potentially will be some spillover. The question is how big that spillover is. Now, at this point in time, if a major market is selling off, you likely get some reactions in other markets too. But we think that the JGB spillover will not be large. I think the focus right now is coming back into growth. I think we also seen some of the data in the U.S. and around the regions as well as has been changing. So we think that the bond market supply noise could be more of a temporary thing, unless we see a marked differentiation in terms of change in the fiscal management and supply outlook coming from the governments.
How do you see Japan trying to ease volatility on the long end then? Because you mentioned some of these lifers, these pension funds. There isn't that much of a need to buy longer dated bonds in the 30-year maturities anymore because look at the aging society. What can they do to actually calm the volatility there?
Well, if we're coming from the supply side, in terms of the Ministry of Finance, they can look at tweaking their auction programs and sizes. If they see that the longer end, super long ends, the demand is weaker, they can reduce a bit of supply there and shift some of the supply to the short end. I think that kind of supply management can be done. The other thing, obviously, is buyers of last resort. BOJ may step in again. Yeah. Whether they like it or not, they may have to step in temporarily just to kind of assuage some of the market concerns.
And what's your sort of expectation around the likelihood that the BOJ needs to step up its JGB buying?
It's hard to predict in terms of whether they will likely do it so soon, given that they are also looking at a situation whereby they may raise rates going into the future, right? So I think there's always a possibility there. As long as the market doesn't create too much pain, I think they may just step and just watch, but letting the market know that they are always just beside. I think that signaling effect is very strong. That is kind of like a moral suasion to the market. Don't play too hard, because I'm watching. I think that's kind of the message they are sending.
As a global investor, how much value is there still in JGBs then? Because if I look at a 30-year yield JGB hedged to the dollar, you're getting a yield of over 7% right now. Yeah. If you're looking for a high yield, you're looking for diversification in global fixed income, is Japan where it's at to look for some bargains now?
Well, certainly some of the global investors have been looking at this seriously because the rise in JGB yields presents new opportunities. And as you rightly pointed out, in terms of the hedging costs and so on, it does make JGBs look attractive. Also, some of the Japanese investors, if they have been investing overseas, they may have to think of potentially marginal change in the allocation over time. I think they would want to avoid a massive kind of repatriation because that would hit the yen really hard and could cause a lot of pain to the economy.
Talk to us about this diversification that you're seeing through the de-dollarization theme. What exactly are you seeing there in particular? We are seeing that coming out from the most recent tariff negotiations and also the twists and turns of developments. Investors are kind of starting to question where the dollar would be in the long term. Can we continue to rely and be confident that the US dollar will always behave the way it is? And also, most recently, we have the Moody's downgrade of AAA as well. So we have started to see some flows favoring non-US dollar assets, not in a big asset allocation change, but we are seeing more inflows into the non-US space. Potentially, some may be looking at euro, some looking at emerging market as well. If you look at emerging market Asian local currency bond performance this year, is up around 6.5% in dollar terms. That is a very respectable number. And investors are looking at outside of US where they can deploy the capital in other areas which are large or which are of comparable volatilities and return characteristics to the US market.
Tell us about the currency risk as well, because this dollar weakness, we talk about it's really devoid of rate differentials right now. Is there anything that you see in the horizon that could reverse this dollar weakness?
I think as of now, if you see a kind of a uptick again in the strong performance of US equities, potentially that can slow down a bit because US equity market still is a very large capital market. So that could kind of draw some of the flows back in a little bit. But I think in the medium to longer term, I sense that the investors are beginning to de-emphasize a little bit on US dollar, so looking for opportunities elsewhere. That's where I think kind of fits in well for the Asian capital markets, opportunities for us to deepen the markets here and attract more investors inflow into this region.
That's the emerging market story. What about the developed market story? What are you preferring there?
Well, potentially Europe could be one area that investors can look at because the capital markets are very large. UK or even Australia, right, still AAA. Japan, obviously, we touched on as well. I think there are more opportunities right now, depending on where the base currency of the investors are, for them to kind of diversify away. That is, I guess, we are living in a kind of new world whereby diversification comes to the fore again.
All right, Kheng, thank you very much for joining us. That was Kheng Ning there, APAC Head of Fixed Income at State Street Global Advisors. And still ahead on the China show, this is a really big one. actually. We're hearing about queues that are just stretching on and a lot of anticipation for what's going to be the launch of the new Switch 2. There's a lot on the line for Nintendo on this as well. They really need this to be a runaway success. So we'll discuss what's at stake later in the hour.
I think our very own Garel already got his hands on one, I think. We'll check with them a bit later on. But first, China weighing in on order of hundreds of Airbus jets and what would be a major win for the European playmaker, extending its lead over Boeing. The details on our scoop coming up next. This is Bloomberg.
Well, some of the corporate stories that we're tracking this morning, and Chinese social media giant Xiaohongshu has seen its valuation surge to $26 billion in recent market transactions. The price tag emerged through a GSR Ventures fund document that shows shares changing hands. The platform, that's known in English as Red Note, has gained traction among investors as Beijing unwinds a crackdown on its tech sector. The Wall Street Journal says Kimberly-Clark is nearing the sale of its Kleenex and tissue businesses outside North America for around $3.5 billion. The Journal cites sources saying the company is set to sell the division to Brazil-based pulp producer Suzano. In 2023, Suzano acquired Kimberly-Clark's tissue business in Brazil. The Journal reports the deal could be closed as soon as Thursday. Automakers in the US and Europe are raising concerns about China's export controls on rare earth metals. Mercedes and BMW are in talks with suppliers to prevent shortages of components containing these materials. The industry is lobbying the Trump administration to intervene, warning the situation could impact US auto production in a matter of weeks, if not resolved.
All right, let's get to our Bloomberg scoop now. And we have learned that China is considering placing an order for hundreds of Airbus planes as soon as next month. Now, sources tell us Airbus is talking with Chinese airlines about the size of a potential order, which could involve about 300 planes. Now, a big order would be a significant blow to Boeing, which has struggled to make sales in the mainland. For more, let's get to our Bloomberg transport reporter, Danny Lee, who is part of that scoop as well. He joins us now from Hong Kong. Danny, good to talk to you. Just tell us a bit more about what we know so far about this deal.
Well, China needs more planes. That's the reality of it. And being one of the world's biggest aviation markets, it needs to continually order to keep up the rate of growth, the pace of growth that its airlines are leading. And some of its airlines are some of the biggest in the world. And so what we know is that as soon as next month, European leaders will visit Beijing as part of a diplomatic celebration marking 50 years between China and Europe. And as part of that, there is talks underway for China to order a substantial amount of Airbus aircraft. And this could actually involve anywhere between 200 to 300, even up to 500 aircraft. And so it's a significant number. It could be one of the biggest that China has ever made and amongst the biggest that any airline has made in the world. And so, with the potential for geopolitics to come to the fore here, this is something that China is very much evaluating in order to make its mark as it celebrates ties with Europe in the coming month or so.
Yeah, I think, Danny, to that point, Bloomberg Intelligence then has had reaction to your piece saying that if this does proceed, Airbus's share is going to be topping 50% possibly on the mainland. But you mentioned, you alluded to there around trade tensions and the frictions, but what sort of message does this send to Trump and what's the bearing that this could have on Boeing? I know that they've had to really pull back from China as well in recent years.
Yeah, I mean, when we've seen the latest Trump messages, constantly talking about trade and the difficulty of the talks with China, this would very much, at least hopefully focus the minds because, for Airbus, it has been gaining significant share in China over many years, particularly as Boeing has struggled, particularly around the 737 MAX aircraft, which previously was grounded globally. And so therefore, China had no option but to turn to Airbus to supply its airlines, more consistently. And so therefore, Airbus has had a march on Boeing. But, more broadly, the fact that China hasn't ordered as many planes as it would have done because of the lack of of Boeing being able to deliver, and therefore also the strain of ties between the US and China means that Boeing had very much been out of the picture, and therefore given also COVID, China hasn't really been in the market to order as many planes as it has wanted to. So this is very much playing catch up for the very much years ahead, and particularly as the global aviation market is really piling into aircraft orders. China could very much be left behind if it doesn't act now.
Well, that was Danny Lee there. And Danny, really great scoop. And I just as well want to point out to our viewers that you're so embedded in your area of coverage, transport, that you're actually joining us this morning from the Hong Kong airport as well. So really great backdrop.
Just came back from India, didn't you?
You're committed too. We can say that because not only have you just been at the air show in India, you're coming to us from the Bloomberg Hong Kong airport this morning, or Hong Kong airport, not the Bloomberg one.
Not a fake background.
No, but we will have plenty more ahead, and you're watching the China Show.
Alphabet CEO Sundar Pichai says the tech giant is developing new products that will drive demand for more engineers. Speaking with our colleague Emily Chang at the Bloomberg Tech Summit in San Francisco, Pichai told us more about how AI is changing the way the company works.
I expect we will grow from our current engineering base even into next year, right? Because it allows us to do more, right? I think the opportunity space is also increasing. I just view this as making engineers dramatically more productive, getting a lot of the mundane aspects out of what they do, allowing them to spend on higher value-added tasks. But that means it's an accelerator. People will be able to do more, which means maybe we'll create new products, and hence we will need more people. At least in the near term, to me, it looks like we will expand engineering velocity, and that doesn't mean we're constrained in what we will do. We'll end up doing more as a company as well.
In 2 trials now, judges have said that Google is a monopoly in search and partly a monopoly in ads. How do you address the concern that your AI is built on an existing domination of search and ads, and that this is just reinforcing original monopolies?
First of all, we disagree with the rulings, and we are in the process of appealing these things. Look, if anything, this moment has shown, I don't think there's anyone here who is using anything they don't want to use. You look at the success of ChatGPT or any other product, and people literally have more choice than ever before. The reason people use Google is because they want to use it, right? And so I think we continue to innovate. I think choice is good for users, competition is good for the world. So that's how I see it.
You've said the remedies proposed are too extreme. Would you ever voluntarily break yourself up, control your own destiny?
Look, they seem, compared to what the initial scope of the ruling was, some of the proposed solutions are far overreaching. We'll see how it plays out.
That's the Alphabet CEO Sundar Pichai speaking with Emily Chang at the Bloomberg Technology Summit earlier, and taking a look at some of the market movers in the session today as well, because some sectors are really jumping today, and one of those are the Korean nuclear stocks, because you can see here very broad-based gains. But there's been a deal that's been signed between South Korea and the Czech Republic on a $19 billion project. There was a bit of a legal challenge in this, but that hurdle seems to have been cleared. So we're seeing Doosan, for instance, gaining there more than 6%, but broad upside, really.
And the Kospi continues to edge higher, still a leader on the board there. We're seeing 2% gains for that benchmark as well. Grid tech stocks as well. This is on the news of a government AI application plan. So we're seeing some of these computing stocks flying this morning. We got plenty more ahead. This is Bloomberg. 11:29 a.m. in Tokyo. We are counting down to that 30-year bond auction just about an hour away. So certainly there's going to be a lot of talk about what the demand picture is going to look like here as well. You are actually seeing yields in the JGB market actually heading lower across the curve this morning. So perhaps not as much angst and nerves leading up to this one. Maybe the 10-year bond auction last week helped to ease some of those concerns. Obviously, expectations of maybe changing the issuance of some of these bonds as well could actually help and make a pretty solid auction today. That's according to Citi, thinking that it could actually go pretty smoothly as well. So there you go. You are seeing when it comes to the 30-year yield, yeah, that's down some 4 basis points this morning. But key to watch, right? I think it was 3.185. That was the record high we reached just a few weeks ago. We'll see if it's a bad auction. Maybe that we might get back to those levels. Who knows?
Well, definitely the results are going to be really closely watched. But let's take a look at what's happening broadly in the session today, because we've got Asian equities that are still just holding on to some positive or some gains there. But you've got US futures under pressure. Dollar is fairly steady. I think if there's one sector that's standing out so far this morning, it's certainly the IT one, because that is leading gains across the board. Korea as well. We've seen that market pushing higher for a third straight session following the presidential election, has entered bull market territory, but of course a very tech-heavy index. There is US data that came out overnight as well on the softer side, and so again, some investors are also thinking about what's the outlook for Fed rate cuts, and is that sort of getting priced in as well for this year. But let's move on, bring in our next guest, because this is the CFO of Noah Holdings. It's a wealth management service primarily aimed at Chinese high net worth investors. Let's bring in Grant Pan, who's also CEO of ARC Hong Kong. So, Grant, thanks so much for joining us this morning. You're fresh off your earnings as well. They were just a couple of days ago. But talk to us first a bit more big picture, because I think a lot of people want to know what's the sentiment amongst your clients, high net worth individuals in China, and where exactly do they want to put their money right now?
Yeah, I think it's never a simple answer anymore. Probably in the past, our investors, especially individual investors, tend to make investment decision on near-term sentiment, but they have grown, much more sophisticated over the years. Or part of that we actually attributed to, firms like Noah and ARC, the continuous investor education. So they are getting more and more familiar with the macroeconomy, the entire system. So they tend to diversify their holdings much more than before. And I was just watching the news you guys are analyzing. Actually, one thing comes in mind, that in the past they probably didn't care so much about the currency diversity. But now they do, because the fluctuation, in US dollars and RMB, they tend to look a little bit elsewhere other than China and US, which probably was the primary 2 destinations of their investments before. They look at Japan, Singapore, Europe, to further diversify their holdings. I think that's definitely a great news for firms like us. We want to provide our clients a comprehensive solution that we actually have in each asset class, the top managers for them to.
And you just opened an office in Tokyo, which is the perfect timing.
Exactly.
There's this remittance proposal that's being floated around in China right now. What's the implications of that then? Do you just see it further, a diversification away from the U.S. and U.S. assets? And how meaningful is it so far?
I think, 70-80% of our clients actually are mid-small, type of entrepreneurs, businesses. I think one thing surprised us is when the tariff policy came out, there wasn't a so-called panicking period. I think many of them actually prepared in advance. Many years ago, actually, they started to diversify their either supply chain or market. I don't run into any too many of them, like my only market is Amazon, for example. They actually do tend to diversify that before. So I think the preparation in advance, and also, obviously not putting all the eggs in one basket definitely helped.
One of the interesting flows that we're seeing develop, and has been developing for a while now, is China to the Middle East. So do you see sort of a growth in that as well from your side, whether that means that people are looking for investments there, or whether they're looking to move money there, or whether you're looking at opening an office there? I mean, what's on your sort of agenda for that market?
Well, honestly, I think it's a lot of inquiries, but probably not as much actions. We have been inquired about, clients are, should I buy a house there? Should I start a business there? Should I register a firm there, get a license? People ask a lot. But when it comes when the time comes to actually taking meaningful, real actions, they tend to put it off a little bit. I think it's the remoteness compared to other markets. And also, obviously for Chinese clients, the completely different culture still may be a concern. Also, obviously the hiring of talents, that they tend to have some Mandarin-speaking talents. That's probably also a challenge.
Does that mean, you're getting the inquiries, but maybe does that mean that Hong Kong, Singapore, these kind of traditional destinations are still very key for your clients right now?
Very key, yeah.
So what about opening an office there? I think that there were some ideas and sort of
we
plans,
talked about
maybe.
that.
Yeah.
I remember a few years back, obviously very attractive, especially in Dubai, the DIFC provide great access for international capital. But I think the reason is that we actually follow our clients' footsteps in terms of setting up branches. Unfortunately, not many of our clients actually decided to reside there or opening, expanding there. So we've sort of put that on hold, but definitely we'll keep a close watch
if
on
I
it.
might just press on that point, I think one of the similarities maybe between Chinese and Middle Eastern culture is that business development is really built over a long time and faster maybe than it is in other places in the West, for instance. How long or how many years away then would you need to see then to expect to open an office?
I think probably very soon or sooner than expected. I think one thing, like you have said, when people are actually diverting away from U.S. and China markets in Africa is probably getting much more popular for many of our, especially manufacturing clients. And to have an office in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, for that example, that you have corporate headquarters there, board governance structure there, to oversee businesses in Africa is actually quite a popular structure nowadays. So,
tell us about the domestic side of things in China right now. It seems like markets are doing pretty well. The tech sector is certainly getting a lot of interest and positivity. Once again, are you seeing more a revival of interest in China onshore?
Yeah, definitely. We actually see a very strong rebound in RMB assets this quarter for our clients. I think people kind of just calmed down and they started to look at the positive side of things. Obviously, still a lot of opportunities in AI, in clean energy sector. Yeah.
Right.
Crypto. What's the appetite that you see from your clients for that asset class?
Oh, yeah. That's interesting because many of our clients, actually, their average age is probably in mid-50s. So when we talk about crypto, they thought that's a very foreign idea. But
is it glazing over?
Yeah, exactly. But one thing that we tell our clients, you can probably not having one Bitcoin, for example, but you should not miss out because you refuse to understand how that works. So we try to provide a lot of fundamental education to the client, about the crypto ecosystem and probably some stable coin or.
What's the way you get exposure then? What are the different avenues? I guess ETFs, for instance, is probably one of them.
ETFs, stable coins, or just some stocks. We actually provide quite a bit of FCN structure products. NVIDIA, Coinbase, I think that way they have a taste and exposure to that. But I think one observation is the second generation. Their kids, in late 20s, early 30s, very fluent in that, in crypto. So they are they're the group that we're trying to look over, especially on exposure on crypto assets.
What else to this kind of, we talk about this whole change of generation, right? Sort of wealth. What are some of the trends that you're seeing among some of the younger clients that you have?
It's interesting that I think some of our clients, the older generation, they face I would say probably only 1 out of 5, their second generation, would take on the family business. After studying abroad, they came back, they want to invest. But some of them actually become very entrepreneurship. So they want to start up something. So I think that's probably one challenge that some of our clients are facing is that their second generation probably wouldn't want to take over the traditional family business. Yeah.
Grant, it's great to have you here. Grant
Thank you.
Pan there, Noah Holdings CFO and ARC Hong Kong CEO joining us here in our studios. We got a big interview coming up as well. We're speaking with the former Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, who hasn't been shy with criticism of President Trump after they clashed during his time in office. He'll be on Insight with Haslinda Amin on The Times on your screens. We've got plenty more ahead. This is Bloomberg.
Well, the recent drop in interest rates in Hong Kong is raising doubts over the financial hub's commitment to its decades-old currency peg with the US dollar. That's according to Bloomberg Opinion columnist Shuli Ren, and she joins us now. So, Shuli, I mean, in theory, the Hong Kong dollar is pegged to the US dollar and interest rates should go in lockstep, basically, with what the Fed's doing. But is this, the gap that we're seeing now that's really building, why is that persisting?
Well, in theory, using carry trade with the Hong Kong dollar as the funding currency could narrow the gap. Basically, you're borrowing Hong Kong dollar and buying into a much higher yielding US dollar. That in turn boosts demand for Hong Kong dollar and push up the interest rate within the city, right? The fact that this gap has persisted for a month basically shows that there is very little interest in earning this easy carry trade. And it goes back to the whole notion of sell America, the notion that a lot of Wall Street banks are saying that the US dollar could tumble a little bit more. In recent weeks, there's this talk of Asian financial crisis in reverse, right? Like suddenly you could see a melt up in Asian currencies, like what we saw with the Taiwan dollar last month. Taiwan dollar gained 8% in just 1 month, right? So perhaps currency traders or retail investors, they're just worried that maybe the Hong Kong Monetary Authority will perhaps tweak the peg band, right? The 7.75 to 7.85 has not been changed for two decades. Maybe they will perhaps repeg and strengthen the Hong Kong dollar a little bit. And once that happens, the carry trade makes no sense.
Yeah, there goes your carry trade. For years, we talked about whether the dollar peg makes sense.
Yes.
Is this time different? What's your view now?
I mean, the fact that every time the Hong Kong dollar hits either side of the band and we start to hear market rumors, that just shows that there are a lot of concerns about this pretty simplistic way of currency mechanism, right? Like other currencies, they were loosely packed to a basket of other major currencies. And now, I think, for now it works, but we do need to think about whether dollar will continue as the reserve currency for the next decade, right? What we are seeing from the White House, from the U.S., it can be quite troubling. The so-called remittance tax on foreigners, the so-called revenge tax, they are forms of capital control. And when we talk about the U.S. dollar subject to possibly capital control, it becomes the Chinese yuan, and no one will want to hold it, right? So I do think the Hong Kong government does need to think about how to gradually transition out of this very simplistic system.
But right now, I guess for the Hong Kong government as well, there are some advantages for having a persistent gap.
Yeah, yes, for sure. Right now, our city doesn't have to basically guess when the Fed is going to cut rates. Interest rate is already very low, right? And we can possibly see a rebound in our residential real estate, right? Like corporate loans in Hong Kong, the interest rates are basically HIBOR plus, and it's a better improving financial conditions without us being packed to what the central banks in New York decide.
All right, Shuli, thank you. Shuli Ren there, our Bloomberg Opinion columnist as well. Of course, you can get Insider's Guide to the Money and people shaking up the finance hub in our Hong Kong edition newsletter that's out every Thursday. You can sign up through the Bloomberg.com website /newsletters. That's where you go.
Yeah, and just taking a look at some live pictures now that we've got. This is taking you to Mount Arafat, actually, in Saudi Arabia, because the Muslim pilgrims are making their Hajj pilgrimage this morning, so you can see those shots there. This is, of course, an annual event, and really thousands, of course, making this pilgrimage each year, but we'll have plenty more ahead. This is Bloomberg. The European Central Bank is expected to lower interest rates for the 8th time in a year later Thursday. That would bring the deposit rate to 2%. The ECB is shifting from tackling elevated inflation to a phase of unpredictability over the impact of President Trump's tariffs on prices. Bloomberg Economics sees policymakers retaining a dovish tone to keep the door open for further easing later in the year.
Yeah, so largely expected to cut here today. Certainly one to watch is the euro as well. We've been also talking about trade and the like, right? The EU Economy Commissioner there is seeing progress in trade talks with Washington as negotiators race to prevent higher U.S. levies from taking effect on July 9th. But he also told us the bloc will not hesitate to impose counter tariffs if the deal falls through.
We do see a negative economic impact from the tariffs already imposed on the EU by US and also on uncertainty which those tariffs are creating, as we know that we are also not yet at the end of the negotiations. So correspondingly, we saw it as one of the factors slowing down European Union economic growth this year, and correspondingly we expect only EU economy to grow by 1.1% this year. So from European Union side, we are willing to find a mutually acceptable solution with United States as regards the tariffs, also to put an end to this uncertainty and to avoid further also global economic fragmentation.
If you guys cannot reach an agreement by this, at least the deadline that the U.S. has put on you for next month, have you prepared a package of retaliatory tariffs against the U.S.?
Well, as you know already, when the steel and aluminium tariffs were introduced by the Trump administration against the EU, we already prepared the first set of countermeasures, counter tariffs, but we also suspended these counter tariffs to give negotiations a chance. But we had reiterated that if we are not able to find mutually acceptable solution, we are ready also to put those counter tariffs in place as regards the first package, which was our response to steel and aluminium tariffs, but also a broader package, which is a response to already further tariffs which had been imposed on the EU. But right now, we are still negotiating. Actually, exactly today, our Trade Commissioner, Maroš Šefčovič, is in negotiations with U.S. Trade Representative, Mr. Greer, and they are making progress.
Commissioner, at the same time, China has announced an agreement to buy Airbus planes, potentially 300 of them. And I wonder how much, while trade negotiations are going on with the U.S., the European Union is moving forward with some sort of discussion with China about tightening ties there.
Well, as regards China, it's worth noting that China is second largest EU trading partner after the US. So obviously for us it's very important to have our transatlantic relations and including trade and investment relations on track, but obviously also relations with China are important.
That was the EU Economy Commissioner, Valdis Dombrovskis, speaking with Bloomberg's Romain Bostic and Lisa Abramovitz. And really big focus this morning and coming up, I think, in the next hour. Is that right?
Yeah. At 12:30 local time in Japan, right, was where we're going to see that 30-year bond sale. So a lot of focus there. Yields are heading lower, so maybe things are not as nerve-wracking this time around.
Well, yeah, and there's also been a decline in Treasury yields, so maybe that's giving a bit of temporary support. But certainly it's going to be a really pivotal test for the market because you've got the 30-year auction today, but you're coming off a 10-year sale that did attract some reasonable demand, but weaker for 20 and 40. So the focus very much on the 30. Again, some optimism maybe around the sale because the Ministry of Finance could end up reducing issuance. Yeah. We're talking with State Street Global Advisors at the top of the hour as well, saying that maybe if it isn't a great result, this is the point for the BOJ to step up JGB buying as well.
Yep. Keep in mind they have a meeting mid-June, so just a few weeks from now. And we might get an update on their bond buying plan. So that's certainly one thing to watch. Also, what's on sale? as I make this segue. You look at pictures of Nintendo fans queuing for the brand's latest console. We're talking about the Switch 2 again. Yeah, I'm not bored of it yet. Nintendo is launching the device globally. And yeah, a hefty price tag, right? We're talking about $450. And the launch is a crucial one for the company, one of the biggest gaming debuts in years. The Switch 2 succeeds its 8-year-old predecessor, which pioneered a hybrid design that allows play both at home, on TV, and on the go. Our very own Garel ready. He's been writing about it. I think you're waiting for your Switch any minute, any second now, Garel. I really want to see you have your hands on one. How has it been so far, and what are you looking out for the most?
I literally just heard my doorbell go as I sat down to do this hit, so I'm going to have to chase down my delivery guy after this. If you're watching, please just wait there for a couple of minutes. I have had, fortunately, I have had an opportunity to play on the Switch 2 a little bit a couple of weeks ago at one of the events that Nintendo put on for the media. I think it will justify the price tag. I think one of the things that, as you can see in that video that you're showing just there right now, it is a much more kind of premium product than the original Switch, which was quite toy-like in some ways. It really has a very nice kind of, it feels like something that came more out of an Apple design lab or something like that. And of course, if you didn't get one, if you haven't pre-ordered one, or if you're not in one of those queues right now that you showed, you're not going to get to see one for a while because they're struggling to put up with demand.
Yeah, well, talk us through that then. I mean, what's the level of demand? What's sort of the wait list if you can't get one today? Are you seeing any prices, for instance, of these being on-sold into grey markets or secondary markets? The level of hype?
Certainly in Japan, Nintendo has put a lot of effort into trying to reduce the grey market on selling. There's been a big problem here with scalpers in previous years, with previous releases, and they have done their utmost really to try and cut down with that. They've worked with auction sites, with places like Mercari, to try to stop it from being sold into the grey market. Obviously, can't be 100% successful. Basically, today they are going to sell out of every device that they have. I think for the coming months, they're absolutely going to sell out of every device. It's going to be a long time before you're going to be able to walk into a store, to walk into a Best Buy and just pick one up off the shelf, unless you're very lucky. So that's going to make it a little bit difficult for us actually to see how successful the device is going to be. What's the tail on the device really going to be? Obviously, the Switch 1 had a really long tail, 8 years, much longer than Nintendo would normally put a console out for. Can the Switch 2 match that? We'll have to wait and see.
Well, that was our opinion columnist, Garel Rady there, who can hear the delivery man at his door with his Switch console. We want to get the review tomorrow, but that's it for the China Show. Insight with Haslinda Amin is next.